They erased our name, burned our cities, buried our voice. But one of us remembers, and now, the galaxy will too. Kale Vox woke to a silence so deep it felt like the end of everything he had ever known, a silence born from the void where memories once lived and now only shadows remained, the galaxy around him cold and unfeeling as if it had been scrubbed clean of his existence, where the echoes of humanity's past were no more than whispers buried beneath layers of lies crafted by alien hands. A future rewritten so thoroughly that even the stars refused to remember his kind, but within that crushing emptiness, a spark stubbornly ignited, a flicker of defiance born from the marrow of a species that refused to be forgotten, that even when erased from records and histories, burned with an unquenchable fire to be seen, to be known, to fight back against the darkness that sought to smother the human spirit, and as Kale's mind struggled to assemble the broken fragments of a life stolen from him, faces, places, names flitting like ghosts through his consciousness, he felt the weight of a responsibility heavier than any armor, a burden forged in loss but tempered with hope, because to be the last human was to be the first rebel, the first spark in a revolution that would rage across the void, a rebellion not just against the alien overlords who deemed humans too chaotic to exist, but against the silence that threatened to consume every trace of what it meant to be human, for humans were chaos incarnate, the wild pulse in a universe ruled by cold logic, the unpredictable storm that neither algorithm nor empire could fully control, and Kale carried within him the memory of all this, the passion, the fury, the relentless drive to create and destroy, to love and fight, to survive and remember, and it was this memory that fueled him, even when his body was weak and his soul was battered, because memory was rebellion, and rebellion was life itself. A war waged in the deepest recesses of his mind against the erasure imposed by those who feared humanity's very existence, and as he rose from the ashes of forgotten worlds, every breath he took was a defiance, every heartbeat a drumbeat calling out across the stars to those still lost in the dark, calling them to awaken and reclaim what was theirs, for even if the galaxy had tried to bury humans beneath layers of oblivion, it had failed to understand the essence of human will, which thrived in chaos, found strength in pain, and burned brightest when pushed to the brink, and Kale knew that this was only the beginning, that his journey would lead him through the wreckage of shattered alliances, through betrayals carved in the cold steel of alien technology, through the ruins of civilizations that no longer held his kind's name, but he would not falter, because he was not just fighting for himself, he was fighting for the spark of humanity flickering in every hidden corner of the universe, for the chance to light a fire so fierce it would tear through the lies and silences and reclaim the truth, and in that fire, humanity would rise again, not as victims, but as a force that no one could ignore, and as the first star blinked awake on the horizon of a new war, Kale Vox stepped forward, carrying the weight of the forgotten past and the hope of an uncharted future, ready to write the next chapter of existence with blood and memory and the fierce, unyielding heart of a human who refused to be erased. Kale's mind churned relentlessly beneath the crushing weight of a past systematically obliterated by an empire too fearful to admit humanity's true nature, his every thought a tempest of buried memories and forbidden knowledge that flared like dying embers ready to ignite a conflagration that would consume the cold order imposed by alien overlords, for they had thought that by erasing names, history, and flesh they could extinguish the fire of human spirit, yet in the depths of his consciousness, buried beneath layers of mental encryption and emotional scars, the unbreakable core of human will throbbed with a fierce heartbeat no synthetic algorithm could predict or control. The pulse of rebellion that had first flickered when humanity's worlds fell silent under bombardment and propaganda, a flame nurtured through generations of survivors scattered across the void, whispering to one another in secret codes, passing legends of resilience and wrath through encrypted signals like a virus against tyranny. Kale remembered the taste of his mother's warmth, the sound of laughter drowned in explosions, the faces of comrades lost in forgotten battles, and the song of a lover whose name was now only a ghost in his mind. Each memory a shard of identity reclaimed from the abyss, each pain a fuel for his relentless drive to reclaim not just survival, but the dignity stolen from every human soul, because humans were chaos incarnate, unpredictable storms wrapped in fragile flesh, defiant sparks of life that no empire could fully extinguish, and with every hacked firewall and cracked security protocol, Kale unleashed a symphony of insurgency that resonated through forgotten systems, waking the slumbering embers of human defiance hidden in dark corners of the galaxy. sending ripples through the digital web of control that stretched like a net to suffocate rebellion. His fingers danced with calculated precision over alien interfaces, not just breaking codes but rewriting the very algorithms designed to erase his kind, turning the tools of oppression into instruments of revolution, and as whispers of the ghost of humanity spread like wildfire through encrypted channels, the galaxy's empires trembled with the realization that they had underestimated a species whose greatest weapon was memory, whose greatest strength was hope forged in the crucible of loss, whose unyielding spirit defied oblivion itself, and though every victory came with sacrifice, friends lost, alliances broken, trust shattered, Kale embraced the burden, knowing each step forward was a step toward a dawn where humans would reclaim their place among the stars, fierce and unbowed, their stories no longer erased but carved boldly into the fabric of existence. And as he stood on the precipice of a war waged in shadows and light, a war not just for survival but for the right to remember, to feel, to rage and love, Kale vowed to become the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide blaze of resistance, proving that no matter how deeply you try to bury the soul of a species, it will rise again, burning brighter than ever, unstoppable, eternal, human. Kale's hands moved with precision born of desperation and defiance, each keystroke tearing through alien firewalls like a scalpel slicing through flesh, revealing the hidden recesses where human survivors had embedded themselves in the digital shadows, living ghosts on the periphery of galactic society. And as his fingers danced, unlocking caches of forbidden data, he felt the pulse of 1,000 lives echoing through the wires, stories of resistance, whispered plans for uprising, coded messages of hope and rage intertwined, each one a testament to humanity's refusal to vanish quietly into the void. And though his body ached with exhaustion, his mind burned brighter, fueled by the faces of those he fought for, the children whose laughter had been silenced, the lovers torn apart by war, the friends lost to betrayal and the cold indifference of a universe that had turned its back on them. And within that inferno of memory and resolve, Kale became more than a man. He became a symbol, a beacon of rebellion pulsing through the endless night, and as the alien networks scrambled to contain the spreading insurrection, he saw cracks in their perfect systems, fractures in their arrogant certainty, proof that no empire could cage a species born from chaos and fire. And with every line of code rewritten, with every system bent to his will, Kale paved the way for a reckoning that would shake the stars themselves. For this was not just a fight for survival but a battle for identity, for the right to exist in a universe that had tried to erase the very idea of humanity. And as the first sparks of resistance flared across distant worlds, Kale's resolve hardened into steel, his spirit bound to the unyielding promise that the story of humanity was far from over. It was only just beginning. Beyond the digital war waged in secret, the physical world responded to the ripples Kale's actions sent through the web of oppression. Hidden pockets of humans rose cautiously, emboldened by the signals reaching them, and though the alien patrols hunted relentlessly, these sparks grew into flickering flames, clandestine meetings turning to armed defiance, whispers turning to cries of rebellion. And as Kale navigated through the wreckage of civilizations that had forgotten his kind, every encrypted message he cracked brought him closer to the truth about the deeper conspiracy that had orchestrated humanity's near extermination. A secret buried so deeply it threatened to unravel the fragile peace maintained by interstellar alliances, for beneath the veneer of galactic unity lurked a shadow network of puppeteers who had feared the human spirit's potential and had vowed to snuff it out before it could ignite a universal revolution. But Kale, armed with the collective memory of his people and a will forged in loss, vowed to expose and dismantle this unseen enemy, threading through cosmic ruins, hacking war machines, turning weapons against their masters, all while piecing together the fragmented history stolen from humanity, until the stars themselves whispered the promise of a reckoning as the galaxy shifted on its axis, and the final war for humanity's soul was no longer a distant dream but an imminent storm on the horizon. The stakes escalated as Kale's insurgency grew, the galaxy teetering on the brink of chaos as old enemies and uneasy allies took sides in a conflict that defied simple alliances. And amidst this tempest, Kale's mind often wandered to the question that haunted every human soul left in the void. What does it truly mean to be human in a universe determined to forget? It was a question with no easy answers, one that forced him to confront his own pain, doubts, and the sacrifices demanded by his cause. For humanity was not perfect. It was a storm of contradictions. capable of unspeakable destruction and boundless compassion, fierce independence and deep connection, fragile mortality and enduring legacy, and Kale carried all these truths within him as both burden and strength, because in reclaiming humanity's future, he also had to reclaim its essence, a journey that demanded he face not only alien empires but the shadows within himself, and as the resistance rallied, as humanity's scattered voices merged into a chorus of defiance, Kale realized that the fight for survival was inseparable from the fight for identity, and that in this crucible of war, the spark of a new dawn for humanity was born, fierce and untamed, ready to burn across the cosmos with the fury of 1,000 suns. And so, standing at the edge of a universe that had tried to erase his existence, Kale embraced the full weight of his mission, an impossible fight against overwhelming odds fueled by nothing but memory, hope, and the unbreakable will of a species that refused to die quietly. And as the first light of rebellion flared into a blazing inferno, his voice echoed across the void, a call to arms for every forgotten soul, every lost child of the stars, a promise that the story of humanity was not a tale of extinction but a saga of resurgence, that no matter the darkness, no matter the silence imposed by ruthless empires, humans would rise again, unbound, chaotic, and eternal, a force no power could contain, and in that promise burned the unyielding truth. To be human was to fight, to remember, and to never, ever surrender. The echoes of rebellion rippled through the stars as Kale's network expanded like wildfire, infiltrating the once impregnable bastions of alien control with a precision born from desperation and fury. Every hacked terminal, every freed mind was a victory stitched into the sprawling tapestry of resistance, yet beneath the surface of this relentless uprising, a deeper storm brewed, not of weapons or strategies, but of betrayal, doubt, and the gnawing question of what price freedom demanded, for in the crucible of war, trust was a rare currency, and alliances shifted like shifting sands underfoot, forcing Kale to navigate a labyrinth of conflicting loyalties, haunted memories, and the ever-present shadow of his own fears, as he sought to bind a fractured humanity into a force capable of toppling empires and reclaiming stolen futures, knowing that failure meant not just extinction, but the erasure of everything that made humans defiantly alive, a truth that sharpened his resolve and hardened his heart against the tides of despair, as he stood at the precipice of a war waged not only in the cold reaches of space but in the fiery battleground of souls, where every choice carved the destiny of a species forged in chaos and bound by unyielding spirit. Across countless star systems, whispers of the ghost of humanity grew into a roar, a legend that galvanized scattered pockets of survivors into coordinated strikes that dismantled alien infrastructure piece by piece, turning technology designed to suppress into weapons of liberation. And as Kale's rebellion morphed into an unstoppable force, the Empire's grip faltered, cracks appearing in their armor of arrogance and control, yet the cost was written in blood and sacrifice, every victory shadowed by the loss of comrades, friends, and the innocence of those caught in the crossfire. And as the war escalated, Kale wrestled with the weight of command, the burden of leading a fractured people toward a future uncertain and fraught with peril, his nights haunted by the faces of those who would never see the dawn they fought to claim. And amidst this turmoil, a revelation struck him, that the true battle was not against alien oppressors alone but against the creeping erosion of humanity itself, the risk that in fighting to survive, they might lose the very soul that defined them, a truth that forced him to confront his own darkest fears and reaffirm the unbreakable resolve to protect not just lives, but the essence of what it meant to be human. In the depths of a war-torn system, where the stars flickered with dying light, Kale uncovered a secret buried beneath layers of deception and time, a hidden archive containing fragments of humanity's forgotten past, memories erased but never truly lost. And as he delved into these relics, he found not only hope but the blueprint for a revolution that could reshape the galaxy, a spark to ignite the embers of resistance into an inferno of liberation. Yet this discovery came with a price, drawing the attention of enemies both alien and human, forces eager to claim or destroy the knowledge that threatened to upend the fragile balance of power. And as Kale prepared to unleash this newfound weapon, he understood that the final chapter of their struggle was approaching. A battle where the fate of humanity and the very fabric of the cosmos would be decided, a fight not merely for survival but for rebirth. And as he gazed into the abyss of uncertainty, he embraced the chaos within, ready to lead his people through fire and shadow toward a future forged in defiance and hope. The tide of war surged forward as Kale's forces struck at the heart of the Empire's dominion, their attacks precise and brutal, a symphony of rebellion orchestrated with ruthless efficiency and raw passion, and amidst the ruins of conquered worlds, humanity's spirit blazed brighter than ever, unyielding and fierce, a beacon to all who yearned for freedom, yet the victory was tempered by the scars etched deep into the collective soul of a people pushed to the brink, and as Kale witnessed the cost of their uprising, he grappled with the paradox of power, that to protect the future, sacrifices must be made, that in the dance of destruction and creation, hope and despair were forever intertwined, and as the final battle loomed on the horizon, he found strength in the unity forged through pain and resilience, a force unstoppable, born from the chaos of countless shattered dreams and the unbreakable will of a species determined to reclaim its destiny among the stars. And so, beneath the shattered skies of a galaxy on the edge of transformation, Kale stood resolute, the weight of history and hope converging within him as the storm of war reached its crescendo, every heartbeat a drumbeat calling humanity to rise, to fight, and to remember that even in the darkest void, the flame of life burned eternal, and as the first light of a new dawn pierced the cosmos, the story of humanity surged forward, a saga of fire and fury, loss and love, chaos and courage, forever etched into the fabric of the universe, a testament that no force, no empire, could silence the fierce, indomitable song of a species born to endure and to conquer, forever human. The embers of rebellion glowed brighter than ever, igniting entire systems with the promise of freedom, and as Kale pushed deeper into enemy territory, his resolve became a tempest sweeping away doubts, fears, and the remnants of a past that sought to cage humanity in silence. Yet the closer he drew to the heart of the Empire's stronghold, the heavier the burden of leadership pressed upon him, for every act of defiance unleashed new waves of retaliation, new sacrifices etched into the fragile fabric of his people's survival, and within this crucible of war, Kale found himself confronting not only external enemies but internal fractures, fractures born of fear, desperation, and the harsh realities of war, that threatened to unravel the unity he had fought so hard to forge, forcing him to navigate the treacherous currents of trust and betrayal, loyalty and doubt, as he strove to keep alive the fragile hope that had become the lifeblood of the resistance, knowing that in this battle, the fate of humanity was not just a question of victory or defeat, but of reclaiming the very soul of a species that refused to be forgotten. As the rebellion's influence spread like wildfire, turning whispers into roars that echoed through star systems, Kale's mind remained a battlefield of memories and strategy, haunted by the faces of those lost and driven by the faces of those still fighting, every decision a razor's edge between salvation and ruin, and amidst the chaos, a revelation struck. Victory would demand more than weapons and tactics. It would require sacrifice of ideals, a willingness to embrace the darkness within to forge a new light, for the Empire's grasp was not merely physical but psychological, a web of control that sought to erode humanity's very essence, and Kale knew that to shatter this cage, he must become both sword and shield, predator and protector, embodying the paradox of a warrior fighting for peace in a universe bent on silence, a force whose strength was drawn from the unyielding storm of human spirit that refused to bow or break, and with each strike, he carved a path through the void, a beacon of resistance blazing a trail toward liberation and rebirth. Deep within the labyrinth of the Empire's citadel, secrets long buried began to surface, revealing the depth of the conspiracy that had nearly extinguished humanity's flame, and as Kale uncovered fragments of truth hidden beneath layers of lies, he realized that the fight was not only for survival but for redemption, for reclaiming a legacy stolen by fear and oppression, and this knowledge galvanized him with a ferocity that transcended mere rebellion. It became a crusade, a mission to restore not just bodies and worlds but the very memory of what it meant to be human, to feel, to dream, and to hope, even when the stars seemed poised to fall silent, and as allies gathered around him, bound by shared purpose and scars, Kale embraced the profound weight of leadership, knowing that the path forward was fraught with peril, but that through sacrifice and unbreakable will, humanity could rise from the ashes of despair to reclaim its place in the cosmos, fierce and unyielding. The final assault was a storm unlike any the galaxy had witnessed, a furious dance of destruction and defiance where the line between victory and oblivion blurred, and as Kale led his forces through the heart of the Empire's bastion, every heartbeat echoed with the rhythm of revolution. every breath a testament to the indomitable will that had carried humanity across impossible odds. Yet in the crucible of this apocalyptic clash, he faced the ultimate test, not just of strength, but of faith in himself and his people, for the darkness within threatened to consume all they had fought for, and as the battle raged on, Kale confronted the crushing truth that the price of freedom was steep, and that some sacrifices could never be undone. But even as the shadows closed in, the spark of hope blazed fiercely, a fire that no empire could smother, and in that blaze, the future of humanity was forged, a new dawn born from chaos, loss, and unwavering courage. And when the dust settled, the galaxy bore the scars of war, but humanity stood unbroken, their spirit rekindled in the crucible of struggle, a phoenix risen from the ashes of extinction. And as Kale gazed across the stars, he saw not just the remnants of a shattered past, but the dawn of a new era where humans would no longer be shadows in the void, but blazing beacons of chaos, creativity, and unyielding hope, forever etched into the cosmos as a testament to the relentless heart of a species that refused to fade away, proving that even in the darkest nights, the flame of humanity burns eternal, a force of nature as wild and beautiful as the stars themselves. The final battle raged across the fractured stars like a relentless storm, each pulse of light and shadow marking the desperate clash between humanity's unyielding will and the Empire's ruthless grip. And Kale, standing at the heart of this cosmic tempest, carried the weight of countless hopes, fears, and sacrifices upon his shoulders, every decision a razor's edge balancing survival and annihilation, as the echoes of the fallen whispered through the void, urging him onward with the fierce clarity of purpose that had forged him into the unbreakable symbol of resistance. And though the darkness sought to consume him, to snuff out the last flicker of defiance, his spirit blazed brighter, fueled by the memories of those who had given everything for a future where humanity could breathe free, love without chains, and dream beyond the stars. In this crucible of chaos, Kale faced not only the Empire's might but the shadows within himself, doubts gnawing at his resolve, the heavy cost of leadership searing his soul. Yet even as allies fell and worlds burned, the fire of rebellion surged with unstoppable fury, a tempest born of pain, hope, and unrelenting courage that shattered the Empire's illusion of invincibility. And as the final walls crumbled and the tyrants fell, a profound silence enveloped the galaxy, a silence heavy with loss yet alive with the promise of rebirth, where from the ashes of devastation rose a new dawn for humanity, scarred but unbroken, fierce and radiant, a testament to the eternal flame that no darkness could ever extinguish, a legacy of resilience written among the stars, forever echoing the indomitable heart of a species that refused to fade into oblivion, the cosmos itself bearing witness to the triumph of a spirit forged in the fires of war and tempered by the unyielding will to survive and thrive against all odds. The stars, once cold and indifferent, now shimmered with the light of human courage, painting the void with colors born from hope and sacrifice. And as Kale looked beyond the battlefield toward the endless horizon, he saw not just the remnants of a shattered empire, but the seeds of a new beginning, a universe where humanity could rise beyond the chains of tyranny and fear, to build a future defined not by conquest but by creation, connection, and boundless possibility, a testament to the strength found in unity, the power of dreams, and the fierce refusal to be silenced or forgotten. A story written in the hearts of millions who dared to fight for more than survival, who dared to believe that even in the darkest of times, the light of humanity could shine brighter than any shadow. And so the saga closed not with an end but with a promise, that the flame of rebellion, born of loss and kindled by hope, would burn eternal, a beacon for all who sought freedom in the vast, uncharted expanse of the stars, forever a reminder that no force, no empire, no darkness could ever extinguish the boundless spirit of humanity.